what's up, everybody? Happy January live report in February. It's kind of just as well. I feel like January was sort of part of 2020 and now we're moved into the new year. Maybe, we'll see. I'm your host, Caitlin Sabosi-Belknap, Move to Amends National Director, and I'm coming to you live from Sacramento today. And as always, you can find us here normally on the last Wednesday of every month at 5 o'clock Pacific on Facebook Live, Twitter, and YouTube. Thanks for bearing with me. Last week, my power was out for 3 days last week here in Sacramento. We had a crazy storm, which was good that we got some rain finally, because we are definitely in drought conditions here in California. But yeah, it knocked out the power and a lot of trees. And even though I'm right in the main part of town, my block was one of the blocks that didn't get power until later. So it was just too hectic to try and go live through my phone. So thanks for tuning in with me today. And for those of you who might be new, Move to Amend is the campaign to pass the We the People Amendment to the U.S. Constitution to make clear that corporations don't have constitutional rights and to get big money out of politics. And today we have a bunch of news and updates from January and up till now. So stay put, don't go anywhere. But please share and retweet this live stream using the hashtag #MoveToAmend and also hashtag #LiveReport for a chance to win a free t-shirt at the end of the report. We always give out prizes. So this month we're going to do t-shirts again. So if you're on Twitter, share the live feed with the hashtag #MoveToAmend. And if you're on Facebook, you can share the feed too. You can also tag people in the comments if there's anyone in particular that you think would maybe want to tune in here. But the way to win a t-shirt is to share it to your profile. And we'll pick one person from each platform, Facebook and Twitter. You can ask me your questions anytime. Feel free to just post them, and we'll cover as many of them as we can at the end. And if we don't get to them, or if you're tuning in through the recording, you're not listening here live, you can still ask your questions and we will respond in the comments just as soon as we can, somebody on our team. So first up is our corporate rule news. So as I said at the beginning, January in many ways felt like just kind of a continuation of 2020 with the whole vibe, and we'll see, maybe that'll happen. I was kind of joking that we should just call it, that was the 13th month of 2020. Now we're in the 14th month of 2020. We'll see. But it is February now, and much happened last month. We now have a new president, and so far we survived an attempted coup instigated by the outgoing president. Soft coup, we'll say. And we also witnessed a group of online day traders and pranksters just gaming Wall Street. So that's what we're going to start with. After so many dark months, it was a little bit of a relief for the biggest story of the last couple weeks to be about some hedge fund companies losing so much money after being beaten by Redditors at their own rigged game. So I imagine everybody's probably heard about this already, but just in case, the story begins with GameStop. It's a tale of corruption from the Wall Street elites and how a group of Redditors banded together to make them pay big for the first time in a very long time. Major Wall Street institutions like Melvin Capital took out huge short positions on GameStop stock, by saying that quickly, that were then joined by other Wall Street giants in telling the public that GameStop stock would go down, which is a logical thing for, old, at this point, kind of obsolete technology compared to where we're at with gaming. But it's a common Wall Street maneuver. You take a short-term position, so you basically bet on that stock is going to go down. You and many others in the Wall Street inner circle all say publicly that the stock is going to go down, making those who listen and care about this even more likely to sell. And then the stock definitely does go down, and then you and your Wall Street friends make a lot of money. And this has been going on for many, many years. It's a whole component of how Wall Street works. until a merry band of people on Reddit took notice and said, well, wait a second, what if we buy the stock and then not sell it? So that alone caused the stock to soar by nearly 50% in a single day, or as Bloomberg noted, the biggest gain in 18 years of the company's history. Obviously, this is all just like speculative and basically gambling, which is very risky. And although some folks got rich from this move, some others are going to lose a lot of money, and that is the stock market. It's an intricate casino that is for big Wall Street guys until this group of day traders from Robinhood accounts, which is kind of just like mostly lay people, although there were some other folks in the mix to be sure, decided to get in and make some money too, which was not received well by the normal status quo of Wall Street. This led to a typically very anti-government group of people in terms of regulation, and financial analysts and Wall Street CEOs calling for the US Securities and Exchange Commission to crack down on these Reddit folks and have more regulations. So Wall Street just kind of like freaked out, and we are going to see what happens. But what I take from this as an opportunity, like we have seen many times over the last year, and I think we will continue to see, of a moment where the veil is pulled back and what's really going on, the rot and corruption is just sort of laid bare for everyone to see. And then we all need to figure out what this means and what we're going to do about it. So I think the implications of this really are still to come in terms of what it means, but it was a blip, and it was just another one of those opportunities for us to show that, what we are told is a fair and reasonable system that is working pretty well is absolutely not that. And it is a system that is working for a tiny fraction of the people, and that is being exposed more and more. And we've known for a long time that Wall Street is like a casino for the elite and powerful, and that they use it to rig and use their advantage all the time with no consequences whatsoever. Like, for example, Nancy Pelosi betting on Tesla stock recently, knowing that Biden's electric vehicle plan is likely to make Tesla go up and therefore benefit her. Like, how is this legal? But it is. The purchases technically could have been done by Pelosi herself or her husband, who runs a venture capitalist firm. But either way, it's their family. And as wrong, as controversial as it should be, it's legal for members of Congress and their spouses to own stock, even though there are countless examples of the information that our leaders in the federal government are privy to is advantageous to them in terms of making decisions about what to do about stock. And there's lots of examples of that happening. So technically they do have to be disclosed because of a law, the Stock Act, Stop Trading on Congressional Knowledge. Isn't that cute? I love it when they come up with a name. It's just so perfect. That was passed in 2012. So before 2012, we didn't even know, but as much as we do now, but we do know. So also thanks to this act, we also know that Pelosi bought 20,000 shares of AllianceBernstein Holdings, 100 calls of Apple Incorporated, and 100 calls of Walt Disney. And that her Tesla shares have risen from $640.34 at the time that they were purchased to over $890 today. The call options, or stocks, were valued at $1.12 million. So again, we know, but this is one of the beefs I've just always had with the push for transparency. It's the same thing of like when we know the kind of fervor around making sure that campaign finance contributions are disclosed. I'm not knocking on that idea. Of course they should be disclosed, but disclosing them does not necessarily do anything about the corruption. In fact, as we've seen, okay, it's out wide in the open, but if there's nothing illegal about it, then it might raise some eyebrows, but it doesn't seem to have any effect or make any difference. And she's not the only one who's engaged in this. but this is just a recent example that just happened with somebody who is, one of the highest officials in our federal government. Former U.S. Senator David Perdue, a Republican, was criticized for making numerous stock trades during his 6 years in Congress. Perdue was the most prominent stock trader in Congress, which is why we're bringing him up here. He made 2,596 to almost 2,600 trades during his time served. Like, what are you doing? What are you doing? How are you not using your intimate knowledge of what is going to happen or what is likely to happen as somebody in the federal government to need to make that many trades while you're in office? Are you a stock exchange person with a side job in the U.S. Senate, or are you a U.S. senator with a side job as a trader? Because probably much more money was made through his stock trading. Some of Perdue's transactions came while he was a member of several subcommittees, and those subcommittees have even more exclusive and specific information that can be useful to them. And despite all that, the Justice Department investigated Perdue and found that he had done nothing wrong. Moving to another area, those disgusting behaviors are nothing new, and it's evident that corruption and greed do not simply end by transitioning into a new administration. At least this is what President Biden signaled by rolling out the red carpet for wealthy individuals and corporations to pay for his January 20th inaugural ceremony. Despite the fact that it was mostly virtual, live streamed, and on Zoom, which costs almost nothing, we can tell you that right now as folks who use Zoom as well. Nevertheless, the Biden team was accepting donations of up to $1 million from corporations and $500,000 from wealthy individuals. To his credit, they refused donations from fossil fuel companies, their executives, PACs, and registered lobbyists, but donations from all other industries and government contractors were welcome. And I'm not saying this to attack the new Biden administration. I know that there have been moments where over the last few weeks, we've come out strong. We bring this up to point out that this was a perfect opportunity for Biden to distinguish himself from the excesses and corruption scandals of President Trump, who raised a whopping $107 million from wealthy donors and corporations with businesses pending before the government to pay for his celebratory party, which, by the way, no one can seem to explain how he spent all that money, and it remains under criminal investigation to this day. So rather than taking a different track, especially coming off of the Trump presidency, which, had so much overt corruption for personal gain for Trump and his family, the Biden administration absolutely could have gone a different route, especially given that the cost of this inauguration was almost nothing compared to what any other inauguration in modern time might have been, but they chose not to do that. And so I'll just say right now that want to be very clear, and we'll be talking about this in future live reports and in some of our blasts as well, that we are here to challenge corporate rule. And I think that probably anybody who is tuning in should feel by now and understand by now, and certainly I hope you see as well, that we live in a system of corporate rule. And it doesn't really matter which party is in charge of either the executive office or the Senate or the House, the corporate rule still rolls along. So that is our job. That is our mission. We're here to build a movement for real democracy that is the antithesis of the corporate rule system that we have now. And we take that very seriously, and we're going to continue to do that. And that means critiquing those in charge whenever they make decisions that further expand and empower private corporations or the wealthy over the rest of us. And so, unfortunately, we're already seeing that not really letting up at all with the new Biden administration. And that shouldn't really be a surprise, considering who Biden's donors were and who runs the Democratic Party. So Biden missed the chance in terms of the inauguration to lead by example, especially in a largely sort of like no skin off his back way, right? And yet and still kind of saying like business as usual. So quite frankly, his cabinet picks are pretty sketchy, especially after picking former corporate lobbyist Jamie Harrison for DNC chair. During the Obama administration, Harrison was a principal at the corporate lobbying firm, the Podesta Group, where his clients included some of Capitol Hill's top spenders on lobbying, including big banks and big oil, and a coalition of coal companies that fought climate change regulations. Other clients of Harrison's, after heading through the revolving door, include defense contractor General Dynamics, Trade Association, the Council of Independent Tobacco Manufacturers, hedge fund Fortress Investment Group, Google, General Motors, and Walmart, according to lobbying records. So regardless of how diverse Biden's cabinet appointments are in terms of gender or race or sexual orientation, we should not ignore the revolving door of corruption and oppression that these people represent, no matter what they look like. And as our good friend Eleanor Goldfield correctly points out in her piece for Mint Press News, which we can link, anyone applauding Biden's first flick of the wrist as president would do well to look beyond their window dressing. How the president's cabinet shapes out in the end is something that we'll keep a close eye on, and we'll obviously continue to talk about here, as I said, and including, oh, nope, that just deleted right as I was talking. Not yet. So yeah, I hope that makes sense. I hope it doesn't, this is not about stealing anybody's ability to be relieved about the fact that Trump is no longer our president. Speaking for myself, I feel relief about that as well. But Move to Amend has always been taken really seriously our responsibility to tell the truth as we see it, and to not sugarcoat the reality that we're in. Because if we're going to build a movement for real democracy and actually attain it, part of what is so essential is recognizing where we're at in that fight. And sadly, we are very far away from having a democracy where everyday people have meaningful influence over our government and then by extension our own lives. And I say that not because I'm not doomsday about that, but that's the reality. It doesn't help me or us, I don't think, to sort of be starry-eyed and imagine that there's somebody else who's going to swoop in and save us from either the Democratic or the Republican parties, or frankly from within our federal government, because that is not what those institutions are set up to be, and we are not who those institutions at this point are set up to serve. So we have to be honest and real about that, and then figure out what to do about it. And that's the next piece. And I hope that that doesn't make you feel cynical and or hopeless, because that's not the solution either. That's actually turning it over to the elites and letting them win, which we have no intention of doing. But we also don't want to imagine that we're going to get out of this mess by hoping and just kind of crossing our fingers and ignoring clear signs that the person in charge of the presidency in this country is not still, working completely at the behest of large corporations, because he is. So we'll keep you updated on all of this. But you're listening to Move to Amend's monthly live report. I'm Caitlin Sposi-Belknap, Move to Amend's national director. Move to Amend is the campaign to pass the We the People Amendment to the U.S. Constitution to make clear that corporations don't have constitutional rights and get big money out of politics. You can ask me your questions at any point. Remember that I'd love to give away a t-shirt to one Twitter listener and one Facebook listener if you retweet this broadcast and use the hashtag Move to Amend. We will pick one person who does that from Twitter and Facebook, and we will give you a t-shirt at the end. Next up is updates from the Move to Amend campaign. So every year, our national team, which is our board of directors, made up of some really awesome volunteers from all over the country, from all different backgrounds in terms of, political movements and age and every kind of, just different experience and reality that you could think of in this that makes up this country. Plus our staff team, which is equally amazing, get together and we have done this from the beginning. So 11 years of this, actually 12, because our first retreat together was before Citizens United and before we launched, and kind of make a plan for the year ahead. And so we were not able to do that in person last year, but we did it over Zoom, and I have to say we did a great job. It took 3 sessions on Saturdays, and a lot of our board members have day jobs where they work all day doing something else, and everybody was pretty exhausted after last year. Everybody was pretty burnt out. Some of you may know that we had to lay off all of our staff for a number of months to kind of make it through last year, because a lot of our donors were supported by regular people who give small donations. The average donation is $35, $40 of our supporters. So a lot of people were struggling, and so we lost some support that people could not afford to, donate to groups like us. So anyway, it was a ragtag set of meetings that we had, but nonetheless, we made a big plan for 2021, and we really were feeling the pressure by the fact that in 2020, there were a number of things that were working against us. Obviously, the pandemic, which was a challenge for anyone and everyone, and it's not over and continues to be. And I live in a state where, Gavin Newsom, because he's afraid of a recall, is basically acting as if we can go back to, normal, open everything up, even though there's absolutely no evidence of that being the case. LA is still totally struggling with COVID, and ICU units are filled to the brim, and nothing has gotten better on the pandemic side of things in California yet, for example, and a lot of states are like that. So the pandemic is still something that we have to contend with as Move to Amend, and all of us, obviously. We also were in a major election year, which for a group like us that's working on a longer term systemic solution that is not going to be a quick fix, that is not going to happen tomorrow, that frankly is probably, would take a sea change in worldview on the part of our members of Congress to pass through this Congress that we have right now, right? So this is about moving the ball forward every year, growing the movement, helping people understand the need for this, and building our power, but in a slow and steady way. And with so many crises and so much breaking down, there's a lot of sense that we need things that are more urgent. Unfortunately, a lot of times those urgent pieces are not actually systemic, not actually going to solve the problem, might sound good, but are, full of loopholes for corporations, or just don't really get to the root of the problem. So we had 2020 working against us in a number of ways. And frankly, Trump being president also really put a lot of people in a headspace of, what we have to do is get rid of him before we can do anything else. And so finding volunteers who were willing to work on Move to Amend as their primary thing, finding people who are willing to contribute, it was a lot harder last year and the year before than it had been before. So I'm saying all of that to set up the context for why in January, even though there were things about the month early on that were like, maybe the world isn't gonna get back on track, but we're gonna still proceed with our plan. We decided to launch a campaign on January 21st, which is a call to get 100 members of the House of Representatives to co-sponsor the We the People Amendment. So the We the People Amendment, that's our amendment. It makes clear that corporations do not have constitutional rights and that money is not speech. And it has been introduced in Congress now 4 times. This will be actually, is it 5th? Hold on, let me think real quick. So each Congress, the amendment needs to be reintroduced. And in my mind, I was going to say this is the 5th, but it might actually be the 6th. We initially only had 3 co-sponsors, and it was kind of just a little bit of a blip. We weren't even really ready. We ended last Congress with 75 co-sponsors. Our goal this year is 100. The big lift, though, is that we want to get those 100 co-sponsors in the first quarter of this year, by the end of March. So the amendment has not been reintroduced yet. Our intention is to get House Joint Resolution 48 again, which means that is going to determine the timing of when it is introduced. They are up to 22 now. And so we shall see what the timing is. Last time it was introduced at the end of February, and that seems like that's a possibility again this time. But if not the end of February, then probably in early March. Congresswoman Pramila Jayapal from the state of Washington is going to be reintroducing it again. So we're working to secure support from those 68 co-sponsors who signed on last time, who are still in Congress out of the 75. And then get another, get us up to 100. And so we're trying to do that before the amendment has been introduced, which you haven't really exactly done before, but that's something that's not unprecedented. Getting all of these folks on, as many of them as possible as initial co-sponsors, and then as soon as it is introduced, we will continue on. So we have a handful of folks. I can't say publicly who, because all of it isn't, official yet. But there are about a dozen people who have committed that they will come on so far. And that's what we've been working on over the month of January. And you can get involved too if you go to movetoamend.org/117 campaign for the 117th Congress. You can see the list of all of our targets. So we want 100. We have targeted about 135 people that are sort of on our top list. To reach out to their offices right now. If you live in one of those districts, you are a very valuable person for us, and we are trying to organize constituent meetings with these folks in the first quarter, 135 meetings. If people already sign on, then we might not need that meeting, but we need to be ready to go with 135 plus meetings, which means 3 to 5 constituents, people who live in that district, joining virtually for an online lobby meeting with their representative or a staff person from their representative. So you can, again, go to our page, see who our targets are. If your Congress member is not on the target list, then you still can, we can still work with you to reach out to them. We just, in our analysis, think that they might not come right on in this first quarter of the year, but we would love to go back to the years where we surpassed our goal. So last year when we got 75 co-sponsors, that's the first time since we began setting goals for this that we only just met our goal and we didn't exceed it. Normally we exceed it by quite a lot in the House. And so we'd like to go back to that. So basically, if you live in the United States of America, you can help us get your Congress member to come on board, whether they're a target or not. While you're on our website, you can learn about how you can plug in, and on the 28th of every month, in addition to trying to set up these meetings, we're going to have a National Day of Action for the 28th Amendment, which is what the We the People Amendment will be. And you can find out how to plug into that. We'll kind of do a different thing every time and contact your representative. So obviously the 28th went by, but you can contact your representative anytime. In fact, what we suggest and request is that folks would consider making these calls, weekly to your representative. The main thing that we are hearing in last year, the year before, from Congress members who have not signed on is that they're not hearing from their constituents enough. So that's where we need you to tell them that this issue is top priority for you. So if you're calling about any other reason, including this as well. It's a little bit sticky right now because you can't say sign on to House Joint Resolution 48 because it hasn't been officially introduced, but you can say when it is introduced, sign on to House Joint Resolution 48. It will be introduced soon. So Alfonso will share a link for 2 different actions you can take. One if your rep was one of the co-sponsors from last time, and one if not. And we will need to come up with more creative ways. Just making these calls isn't really getting through. So some of the options that we have that folks haven't really utilized yet, but we will, is obviously sending emails, but also recording a video. And we've been working with a platform that found that was really successful last year, as everybody was sort of like pivoting over to figuring out how to communicate through virtually and not able to do that in person. And frankly, even a lot of the times when you make phone calls, you can't get through. There's just a recording. Sometimes that's even full. And so we have to get in a different way to get in front of them. And so recording a video, a 30-second video, is one of those ways. So we have the technology to do that and make that really easy for you. And Alfonso will share the link for how you can do that. And if not right now, then in the next few months when we come up on the 28th and we ask you to plug in. And if you've got other ideas, we will probably be doing some social media campaigns as well. Also, just want to put in a plug here. We did put together a petition calling for the conviction of Trump. So if you haven't yet contacted your senator, the trial begins next week, it looks like. And we are demanding that Congress do the bare minimum of their job. Trump has been impeached by the House. He should be convicted. We need to make sure that Trump cannot serve in office. We also need to make sure that Trump doesn't continue to take public money and resources forever, as most presidents get to do, for the fact that, he was a terrible president in a number of different ways. He should have been impeached for a number of different things that he's gotten away with so far. But the latest of which, is the insurrection at the Capitol, inciting that. So encourage you to share that petition as well. And a reminder that every Friday you can join us right here as well for Making Sense with Move to Amend. So that program is something that we started during the pandemic, and we're going to continue it on. It's an opportunity for you to get a sense of our fuller national team than just me. And we go live with a couple of us to answer your questions and share our thoughts about the current events and make sense of the news and hear your thoughts on that as well. So this week, George, one of our board members and founders, will be on with Keon, who is one of our staff members. And last update from Move to Amend is want to make sure that everybody knows about our Toward the People's Constitution project. Last December on International Human Rights Day, we launched our new and long awaited for website for the People's Constitution. It's peoplesconstitution.us. You can find information there on what this project is, but it is kind of taking a larger goal that Move to Amend has had from the very beginning. We see the We the People amendment as still like the tip of our spear and the main campaign that we are working on, but the intention has always been towards building larger discussion and agitation for a more democratic constitution. And there is so much that could be done on that. And we were really excited over the last even just couple years, but especially the last year, at how much that conversation is bubbling up in lots of different areas and places. That structurally, the Constitution, a document written hundreds of years ago by people who, at best didn't know about anything really that might be facing a society like ours now, after so much technology and change. And then at worst, people who believed that, they and not the majority of human beings, certainly not Black people, certainly not women, certainly not Native people, actually were full human beings with rights, are perhaps not the best and the only people to look to for inspiration on how to govern a country. And also looking at how the United States Constitution is one of the oldest constitutions, it's one of the shortest constitutions, it's one of the most lacking in human rights. And we are spoon-fed a narrative from practically birth in this country that it is absolutely the best and most exalted, most genius constitution that ever existed, which perhaps puts us with a lack of perspective on our ability to really judge whether that's true, right? So it's asking big questions, it's positing big things and being bold, and envisioning what it would look like for a people's constitution. What of our constitution that we have would we want to keep? What might we need to change? What needs to be added? And this is all just a discussion. It's set up to be a site that allows for, you to weigh in on with your ideas, weigh in on other people's ideas. It is not a proposal for how to have a constitutional convention. There's nothing about that on there. It is a conversation and dialogue about what a people's constitution would look like, because that's what we feel like is the first step. Can we even grapple with the idea that maybe our constitution actually needs to be changed in more than just one little amendment here and there? I think as the United States people, we can handle it, but let's see. You're listening to Move to Amend's monthly live report. I'm Caitlin Saposi-Belknap, Move to Amend's National Director. Move to Amend is the campaign to pass the We the People Amendment to the U.S. Constitution to make clear that corporations don't have constitutional rights and that money is not speech, and get money out of politics. Ask me your questions anytime. And remember that if you help us share this broadcast, you'll be eligible to win a t-shirt. Normally at this time, we would do our dispatch from the grassroots, but frankly, right now, all of our local chapters, our affiliate folks, what they're working on is securing the co-sponsors in Congress. And so we could list off, which ones are working on who, but that's not particularly exciting. So shout out to every single affiliate out there. Thank you for your work and your leadership. And I know that you're going to clinch those co-sponsorships. And we will hopefully have some news to report on February. In February, when we come back here, we'll either be really close to having the amendment introduced, or we will have it introduced, and we'll be able to talk to you about who is actually stepping up to be a We the People champion and who is still on the fence and needs to be pressured more. So we're at the end of our report. I'm happy to answer your questions if you have any, and don't go away. I will announce who the winners of t-shirts are in just a little bit. Anybody have anything that you've been wondering about as it relates to Move to Amend that I can answer for you while I'm here? And again, if you're listening to this broadcast not live, you can still type in your questions on whichever platform you're on, and we will respond in the comments. Alfonso, I just want to flag I don't have a Facebook winner yet. What exactly is a House Joint Resolution anyways? Good question, Michael. A House Joint Resolution is a resolution that is introduced, and in order to pass, needs to be passed through both houses. So in the Senate, when the amendment is introduced there, it'll be a Senate joint resolution, as opposed to a resolution which can be passed by one body or the other. So by saying they're on 22, I don't know what bill number they're on. I mean, it basically is a bill, but a joint resolution is not always, but typically is an amendment to the Constitution. So that's the answer to that. It's not a very sexy answer, but that's the answer. It's a bill that's an amendment. I see Paul is asking, how do I find Making Sense of the News? That's on Fridays at noon Pacific, and same platform. So you can find us on YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook if you just tune in. We also send an email out to our list right ahead of time. So if you want to make sure, if you're not already getting our emails, if you go to movetoamend.org/motion, movetoamend.org/motion, you can sign our petition to calling for this amendment and is doing that, that will get you on the list, and you'll also get an email update. So that can be helpful, so you don't have to remember. But put in your calendar for noon Pacific or whichever time zone you're in, and then you can tune in. Looks like you're on YouTube, so just come back to YouTube on our channel and we'll go live. And speaking of the petition, I'll just take a moment here to say that we've been doing a lot of work to try and pull together this list of a group of 3 to 5 people in each one of these congressional districts who will commit to doing a meeting. So we've been doing just a lot of straight up, phone banking and emails and sending texts. If you want to help us with that, we can definitely plug you in. Even if your representative is not a target and you want to help with a neighboring target and recruit people, please let us know. We would love to plug in with you. Again, movetoamend.org/117campaign is how you get involved in that campaign. But there are some districts where we really don't have very many people, and who are on our list. So that puts us at a disadvantage because we can't, those are people, we don't have a large list to look to of people who are constituents, but we use anybody who signs our petition is then used in our lobbying of these reps and senators to tell them, this many of your constituents, and then we give them a list of names, not all your contact information, just your names and your city, to show how many constituents in their district support the issue. And I have to say that interestingly, the place where we have the biggest challenges in larger cities, which kind of makes sense. A lot of our petitions have been gathered actually by our volunteers on the streets, going to events and things like that. And that's frankly harder to do in a big city because people are just kind of, they're less likely to stop, and it's just big city culture. So if you live in a city, if you have any friends living in a city, but really if you live anywhere, make sure you sign the Move to Amend petition. If nothing else, that's a way that you can help. I would also ask that you consider making a donation, a monthly donation. I make a monthly donation of $28 a month for the 28th Amendment. And that is a great way to support Move to Amend all the time, even if you can't put your time in. But at a minimum, sign the petition and then share it with a number of your friends and ask them to sign as well. Pretty much everybody agrees that corporations shouldn't have constitutional rights and that money should not be speech. And that's what we're doing. And so this is an easy ask. It might be, in fact, one of the ways that you could pull in some people that you might not agree with everything politically, but you could get on the same page about this if you have family members like that or something. And, even if they don't want to get actively involved with Move to Amend, their name can still be used to help us pitch their Congress members to show that this has widespread support. So please help us out in that way. If nothing else that you do today, if you're not already on the Move to Amend list, please go and sign it. You do get our emails. By doing that, you can unsubscribe anytime. We don't share your contact information with anybody ever. And it's just a really important way to go on the record to say that you want to see the We the People Amendment happen. So our winners are Craig Clark from Twitter and Sandy Lee Shirley from Facebook. If you are Craig or Sandy, then send us a DM with your address and your t-shirt size that you would like, and we will get that out to you. And you can tune in with me next time on February 24th. Again, this is always normally on the last Wednesday of the month. Every now and then we have an exception. And don't forget, on this Friday, Keon Bliss and George Friday will be, this is tomorrow, Friday at noon, but tomorrow's not Friday. So in 2 days, Friday at noon. And we always close out with a hell yeah moment, something to leave you with some inspiration and hope. So today we're going to close out with a clip from Teamsters at Hunts Point Market in the Bronx in New York. They end their strike because they won their demands, and sharing Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez skipped Biden's inauguration to join them on the picket line. Food produce workers wanted a $1 raise after risking their lives in COVID. They were denied, and then they were asked to pay for healthcare and told that you're lucky to even have a job. So they went on strike. The community supported them big time, and they actually were able to win $1.85 in a raise and $0 out of pocket. So it's not just about fighting for $1, it's about fighting for changing the lives of working people across the country. So congratulations to the New York Teamsters Local 202 for showing us what courage can create and what solidarity can do and what a union is all about. So we're going to close on that. Have a really good rest of your February. I hope you tune in to Making Sense with George and Keon. And thanks for being here. Stay safe, everyone. Thanks, Alfonso, for producing as always. Have a great night.
Yes, change happens at the ballot box. Yes, change happens in policy, but change happens on the picket line too. And we can't ever forget that. 60% of our city's produce comes through right here, Hunts Point Market.
Just in New York City alone, we feed 18 million people. Restaurants, bars, nursing homes, supermarkets, your table. We have to work at night in the extreme elements sometimes. The rain, the heat, the cold, the freeze. We're here. We make sure that that stuff gets to your table in the morning. That's what we do.
They've risked their lives every day to make sure that families all over New York can put food on their table. And so now I think it's time that we help these guys put food on the table for their families too.
We're asking for a $1 raise because we've been here from the beginning of the pandemic. And when we approached the owners, they told us that we should be lucky to have a job. The owners don't care. They don't provide you with any PPE, no sanitation, no hand sanitizers, nothing. We got to bring our own. Markets never close, and we don't miss work. We love what we do. We love to take care of the city. We love to feed the people of the city. So we take a pride in that. And hopefully this will impact or spark that go across the city, across the nation, and everybody stands up and fights for what they want.
It's not just about fighting for $1. It's about fighting for changing the lives of working people across the country.
This place is a place of hope for people who don't always have it. That market provides a platform for working class people to build their dreams. We did not know if we were going to prevail or we were going to get back to the bargaining table. But it was because of the pressure and the effort of our membership and the rest of the people that showed up, we got back to that bargaining table. And today, I'm proud that we have reached a tentative agreement to sign a new contract to protect all those things and get a raise.
Bronx style too, with the music, and it's a party and it's joyful. It's a tipping point event, and we see how many young people are out here really seeing the power of the union for the first time. It's really something that I think will change our future.
You have built the strength of this labor movement more than you can ever know. This has been a national story, but more importantly, it's been a national inspiration.
Another day longer, another day stronger, come hell or high water.
You have created a model for this country, and I hope everyone in this country is watching and shows what courage can create, what solidarity can create, and what a union can create. So who are we? Who are we? Who are we?
Unstoppable Sound Agency.
Read the Constitution, there seems to be some type of confusion. I thought it said the people were the institution and not the corporations that simply want to use them. The truth is currently a fusion of corporate loot and our government that is outright abusive. People need change, the state it refuses. They're saying we're mistaken, well show us where the proof is. They control the media, movies and the music, and determine where supplies of the water and food live. We need a strategy, here is a solution. revolution. Build a movement to give our rulers improvements. An infusion of human to counteract the hubris that has our ecosystem near useless and our youth pissed. The founding fathers were flawed, but they knew this. So they gave us the tools to move with. Let's use them.
Move. Corporations are not people. Money is not speech.
Man,
In fact, it's the root of all evil.
now.
And it's time to take to these streets.
Move.
Corporations are not people. Money is not speech.
Man,
In fact, it's the root of all evil.
now.
So get on out of your seats.
Citizens United is the lie. Corporation doesn't know life, nor does it die. Profits from the 100 richest fictions alone in 1 year could make all of poverty gone. The Republicans are lost, Democrats bought. Most American people have forgotten that we fought for healthcare, education, services, and safety. It wasn't kindness, it was war that ended slavery. Not advocating violence, I am saying that lately a lot of folks is dying in ways that seem shady. A lot of students is hiding from debt that they can't beat and asked to be excited about a future they can't see. It's not a climate crisis, it's a corporate crisis, because a corporation can never know what life is. Only a human can. What's the solution then? Amend the Constitution or it's revolution, man?
Corporations are not people. Money is not speech.
Man,
In fact, it's the root of all
right
evil.
now.
To us to educate and to reach. Corporations are not people. Money is not speech.
man.
In fact, it's the root of all evil.
Right
Which
now.
side of the fence you find your feet?
Hip-hop never died, the corporation stole it and told us with boldness that we never owned it. They just loaned it out for the moment. It's a policy and culture matrix. When corporations shape it, only the profits hold it sacred, though they stole to make them. We don't have the convenience of giving up. Gotta swallow all of the real, even if it comes from sippy cups. It's not a matter of political correctness. It's a matter of having the knowledge of what respect is. You can't defend humanity without joining it. This is our responsibility. Let's stop avoiding it. Instituting love as a practice and overcoming the fascists to achieve the democratic, economic, and ecological collapse. I am not being neurotic. I simply offer the fact. We the people are under a monster's attack. It's time to rise, open the eyes, and take our democracy back.